Welcome to this week's edition of Extra Points. I'm Al Lorenzen along with Mark Hansen and Casey Shelton. And the month of May is kicking off, guys, and great weather. Well, at least early in the week we had great weather. Late in the week, not so much. But the sports world in full swing. We talked a lot about the Drake relays last week, and we need to jump in on that. But and there's some other big issues socially, where social life and sport intersect. We'll deal with the Jason Collins thing. But guys, Casey, what really jumped out at you in the sports world this week as you were avidly engaged, as I know you were?
Well, I would say, obviously, the Drake relays. I can't go back and recall when you had that nice of weather at the Drake relays.
It was the perfect storm in a good way.
Exactly, and I think that will only help, as we talked last week about getting bigger and bigger names here. I mean, that kind of weather, they can look at it and go, gosh, that was a great event. And the biggest thing is it put a lot of people in the stands, which helps out, obviously, the community. But I was very intrigued. I even went down there, took the kids down there. We kind of cruised around. And
you didn't buy a ticket, though. You probably snuck in.
No, we didn't even actually go into the event. We just kind of hung out on the outskirts.
To Peggy's?
No. We didn't go to Peggy's. We're not that low like you, Al. But, that's what it was.
Whoa,
Mark,
wait a minute.
I need some help here.
About hi there.
No.
Hey, what about you this week? I mean, obviously the afterglow of the relays is there, and what a great afterglow it is. But what else this week as you were rooting around behind the scenes?
I think the Jason Collins thing is the big thing that jumped out at me. What jumped out at me really is the fact that I was reading and it said that he was the first gay person from one of the four major sports to come out. And I was thinking, that can't be right, can it?
What are the four major sports?
Tennis.
Tennis. Oh, man. Here we go.
No. The four major sports are baseball, basketball, football, and
does hockey really count?
Yeah, hockey. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you could.
Well, maybe it's college football, pro football, baseball, and basketball.
I like it. I like it.
Maybe.
We're going to jump into those in a little bit more depth right after this break. Stay tuned.
That's magic. This is not. No magic can help you get in shape, and it won't happen overnight. You need a plan, commitment, and more often than not, you will need help. That's what the Y does best. They have the finest facilities and equipment and a professional staff trained to help you succeed. If you and your family are serious about living an active, healthier lifestyle, why wait? Join the Y today and let tomorrow be the start of a healthier you.
Are you tired of losing the lives and productivity of your employees and their families to diabetes, cancer, heart attack, and stroke? Not to mention the destruction that these and other chronic diseases cause. In an effort to help, we are proud to introduce the newest member of the Holmes-Murphy family, Dr. Mike Abelasili. Dr. Mike was Family Physician of the Year in 2010 and has a passionate and proven track record for saving lives and preventing disease.
If you truly want your employees and their families to have better lives, you need to call Holmes-Murphy.
Welcome back to Extra Points. This week was one of those weeks where the real world intersected with the sports world in a big way. As Jason Collins, NBA player, 10-year NBA veteran, Stanford grad, I mean, the adjectives go on and on, twin, came out of the closet. And we're uniquely positioned here. We've got some expertise in terms of what's happening in that world. And I'm not making light of that, Mark, with you, with the research you've been doing, with the book project that you're working on and other things. Certainly, a lot of your research has been related to the gay marriage issue and the Supreme Court decision here in the state, but interested to get your take and your perspective. Frankly, you're, dare I say, closer to this than probably Casey and I are right now?
Well, when I was working in the Metro beat for the Register, I covered a lot of what was going on too. And then after I left the paper, Tom Witowski and I decided we would get together on a book project on the Varnum decision. And so we were able to talk to really get into the issue the way I don't think people have done yet. And so we talked to a lot of people. We talked to most of the Supreme Court justices. We talked to Bob Vander Plaats, who was on the other side of the issue. And
really?
Yes, he's
Bob was on the other side of that issue?
On the other side of the issue. And we talked to him and some other people. We got a good cross-section of viewpoints. And I guess, and since we started, much has happened. And it just seems like the popular opinion is leaning towards openness to same-sex marriage. And
Absolutely.
I think that's the way it seems to be going. But I think it's the story of Iowa is very interesting because here was it kind of typifies. It's kind of Des Moines and Iowa are kind of like test markets for the country.
Yep.
And it's sort of same-sex marriage coming to Middle America, or the other way around. So it's really a good story, and it just seems like it's one thing after another. And Jason Collins probably is the next step as far as sports goes. In fact, sports is a little behind in this area, but it's interesting the way you've been in the locker room before, and
Right.
I've been in, and and Casey, you could probably speak to this. It was not a popular subject. It was not. The locker room is
No.
kind of sacrosanct area. This is
Well,
us.
and it's homophobic, at least it was in my generation, and you know, all the things that fly around. And Casey, I'm interested to get your perspective, and I do want to go back to Mark here, but you know, you mentioned there's been a couple former athletes that you know that are, whether it's openly or whether they've come out or whatever it is, they're openly gay.
Yeah, and you know, and they have come out. You know, I haven't obviously talked to them to know more about it. My biggest stance on this thing is, you know, people can do and choose what they want to choose. Why does the sports world have to take this to a whole new level? I mean, there's obviously people every day that come out of the closet and say, you know, I'm openly gay, which that's their choice, and I have nothing to do with that. That's their choice. They can do what they want to do.
Why does it have to be
Yeah,
an issue in sports?
why does Sports Center have to continue to replay it and make so much shedded light out of this? I mean, he's a human being. Other people that aren't in the sports world that choose to be openly gay are human beings, and I have nothing against those folks.
Right.
And so why do we have to put the sports world on a pedestal on everything? Granted, yes, he is a professional athlete, so we put him on a pedestal.
I can feel
but you know
Hanson
what?
chomping at the bit.
I
over there.
understand this is going too, Mark, but Mark, he puts his shoes on just like we put our shoes on.
Not those shoes, but
I mean, I understand, because these are good-looking shoes.
right,
I
right.
understand.
I do
So why
Yeah.
escalate this so much? Why does every
make such a big
sport?
deal out of
Yes,
it?
well, I think we touched on that earlier in that, and which I didn't realize, and I thought the same thing a little bit because. You know,
big-
there's
big
Martina
deal on one hand,
Navratilova. They're all, you know,
A lot of women have been openly
So
gay.
so this struck me as kind of overplayed, but you have to look at it the way the media does, and anything that's a first is going to be big. Yeah. And they're kind of catching the wave of the whole movement, and so and people are talking about it, and so they're looking at it. They're looking at eyeballs. In print and in...
People pay attention to it. It's a hot-button issue.
That's where it comes from. But.
And I look at sports as kind of a microcosm for our society.
Exactly.
And so when you get a chance to really shine a light on this, and you know, the reality is, you know, I look at it from the pragmatic side of this, and I'm the only one that has I'm thinking 7 foot, 280-pound black man, if I was in that lifestyle, I wouldn't want him as a partner. I mean, the reality is, guys, there are some things that, you know, anatomically just don't sound appealing, and that would be one of them. Now, you know, so there's the humorous side of this, and it's out there. It is mainstream now. So, you know, from that perspective, I think it took courage to come out, because I'm sure his phone isn't ringing. I mean, his view of his ability to have a partner at this point in his life is going to be what it is.
Well,
you got no response to that, do you?
That's an interesting point of view, and I'll bet you that no one in the broadcast media has brought that up on the air.
You know, extra
So
points.
that's good.
We go where
Yeah.
no man has gone before.
I got to give you credit for being original. And
I do think, you know, and you can't. I think we're at a point in our culture, though, where, you know, we're not being disrespectful in terms of, you know, singling this guy out, but I think it's a valid question of, you know, does this, to your point, Casey, does this open the door for other guys? I mean, does this open the door? How many men are out there that are competing in high-level sports, whether it's the Big Four or, you know, and now because Jason Collins opened the door, how many other guys are going to say, okay, you know, guess what? I'm there with you.
Well,
you know, it's remained to be seen what happens with this, but I think, again, going back to my comment, the next guy probably isn't going to have as much
Right.
publicity. the fifth guy,
You're right,
it's just another big deal. He'll probably go on Twitter just like maybe other people do, and I'm openly gay, and people will go.
Well, if it's a reflection of the real world, the way you pointed out, and that's the way it's been outside of sports. It's been almost like, okay, big deal.
Yeah.
And that's what it's going to be.
And that's kind of my whole point with my levity earlier was, okay, so what? There's some, for me, just the way my brain works, it takes it in a whole twisted new way. But, it'll be interesting to see, and Mark, it'll be an interesting commentary on our country in terms of, and by all accounts, you listen to Doc Rivers, there's a good chance Jason Collins stays in the NBA next year. Yeah. Everybody's saying, he did this because now he's going to retire. But no. The reality is it'll be interesting as he travels around to see what opposing fans. We've talked at length about how conduct has deteriorated, particularly in professional sporting events. What does Jason Collins have to face, and not just from his teammates or from opposing players, but in the crowds next year?
Well, you're going to get that in anywhere, though. I mean, think about even just, average person coming off the street coming out. They get the same thing. I mean, it's at Capitol Hill when, obviously, Mark, you can attest to this more, but when they were coming out in the Supreme Court and all that, there's people protesting on both sides of it. So, I mean, that's going to be anywhere. He's obviously in a confined area in an arena where people are going to be, obviously blurting out slurs to him if they want to blurt out slurs.
Well, that's what it'll be interesting to see.
I mean, he's in essence, he's kind of singled himself out with that, whereas, the general population might go in groups and not single themselves out. He's obviously brought attention, which I'm trying to say he shouldn't have to have all that attention on him because he is a human being, but he's going to have all that attention on him.
He brought it out.
And especially from the sports world, and so people are going to channel slurs directly to him.
And the reality is, by coming out as he did, there's pressure there, because now if he makes a mistake, if he screws up, then you've got the whole other side that can point to that and say, see, that's how they are, and so he's willingly taken on that mantle. Mark,
hold on. Let me ask you this real quick. Let me ask you this. This is going back to the same thing when Magic Johnson came out when he had HIV. Remember?
That's a great point.
Remember, everybody in the NBA was like, "Oh my gosh, I want to stay away from Magic Johnson. I don't want to touch him. I don't want his sweat on me because I'll get HIV."
Yep.
That's what the general media said, would happen.
Yep.
What
that's
happened?
A great point.
Guys would come out and give him a hug, and let's.
Isaiah
you're
Thomas
all sweaty.
Kissed him on the mouth.
Exactly. Yeah. You're all sweaty. I embrace you.
They always did that,
though. That's what will be.
Point.
That will be. I mean, just like Kobe Bryant coming out and say, hey, I'm proud of you, man. And we'll see.
And you make the case that Magic Johnson did more to promote education as it relates to AIDS and HIV than anybody else. So, absolutely, Mark, you get the closing shot here in terms of, what does this do globally in terms of our culture, in terms of our society, and mainstream acceptance for folks like Jason Collins?
I don't think it does anything. I think there might be isolated incidents at arenas, but it's going to be forgotten in a month. I mean, I think it's not a story. I mean, he's going to be getting questions now. Maybe
let's hope so, frankly. I mean, let's hope that that's the way it goes.
It's interesting because he has a twin brother. That kind of makes it a little bit different, because it brings into the matter of genetics and why one person is one way and why the other
nature
person is
versus nurture and
nature
all,
versus but I see this dying out. I mean, it just seems to be not becoming an issue all over the place.
If we are where we think we are as a culture, hopefully it will. It will become a non-issue. Someone's lifestyle, the way someone chooses to live their life, it should be a non-issue at that point. Interesting. We will be back with more Extra Points right after this.
Overwhelmed? Frustrated? Not sure what to do with your garage? Let the professional design team at Minnesota Cabinets be your garage